Welcome to the This Week I'm Into podcast. I'm your co-host, Pete Tyler. Later on the episode, we're going to have a mutual friend, Jillian Gregory, to talk about her passion of cartoons and their hidden messaging. But right now, I am with my friend and co-host, Paul Imbragulio. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Hans. I'm a little worried that some of my cartoons that I love are going to be exposed to me for their dark undertones.
I truly do not know what to expect from our guest later on, so I'm a little nervous for it as well. It's seemingly innocent cartoon, like maybe it actually has like a little more of a sinister undertone. So let's see what happens later on in the episode. But Paul, I want to start off. What is the most recent cartoon you've watched?
Cartoon? I'm trying to decide what counts as a cartoon. Are we going like anything animated?
Ooh, yeah.
Because I'm currently watching Arcane, which I don't think would count as a cartoon, but it is animated.
Okay.
Here's definitely the right answer. I'm watching The Dragon Prince on Netflix.
Ooh, okay. I don't know that one. Is that a cartoon?
Yeah. I believe it was the same creators as Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Oh, nice.
And it's definitely not similar themes, but like a similar like magical world. And while I don't think it's anywhere as good, it constantly surprises me how interesting the world is.
Okay.
So I keep watching it. It's got like 6 seasons. It's super easy to watch. The only problem is they don't do good recaps. So sometimes I forget what the hell's going on.
So you gotta binge it all the way through.
But now you can.
Or you're gonna lose it.
It definitely feels like it's getting close to the end. So this might be the right time to start.
I'm definitely bought in when you say Avatar. Like
exactly. That's why I started watching it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in for that one. I mean, Avatar. Like speaking of cartoons and like almost like nostalgia factor, right? Like Avatar was certainly a cartoon I grew up with, and like I absolutely loved it. I'm super nostalgic about it. So
yeah, that might be
many times.
That might be my highest rank show of all time, like in my head. The other cartoon that I've been watching, well, I watched recently, that's like a new one to me, was I think it's called Disenchantment, also on Netflix.
Oh, yeah,
and it was made by the creators of The Simpsons, I believe.
Simpsons. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I watch it's like a guilty pleasure, and I rewatch it all the time. Is Futurama, also from the creator of The Simpsons?
That guy's just churning them out. I don't know how he comes up with ideas.
I know. The Simpsons has gone on like I don't know. What is it like? Probably like 30 years, maybe even more.
They had some like crazy episode number recently.
I always think it's so funny too, because like there's the kind of lore that the Simpsons can predict the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The most recent one being they like our most recent president elect. The Simpsons already predicted that. So yeah, kind of freaking crazy that the Simpsons is like basically an oracle.
You put out enough content, something's bound to be true.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they've missed more than they've hit, but like conspiracy, they're like, oh, like Simpsons can predict the future. So Paul, as I was doing my research for this episode, I came across like a lot of new like cartoons that I was never familiar with. Did you know they gave Doug, the dog from Up, his own cartoon?
I did. Yeah. I'd love to hear some of more of these ones that you looked up, but not only are there a lot of spin-offs for cartoons, there's a lot of cartoons that, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I think that the ones when I were growing up were innovative, and I'm sure they were just copies of something else or just sound really stupid. But I've heard so many cartoon titles, like maybe they're better when you actually watch them, but
yeah,
titles that just sound so awful.
I'm so glad you say that, and I don't want to reveal anything yet, but I have a little game for you.
Okay.
A little down the road. So just keep that in your back pocket for now, Paul. But Paul, what do you think of when you think of cartoons? And what's kind of like your experience, background? What cartoons do you watch growing up?
Yeah, I watched a lot of TV growing up. I would say basically most shows from like, let's see what year, probably like 2004 to 2015. I would say I watched basically most shows on Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network.
Yep.
One advantage that I had was that I have a younger sister who's 4 years younger than me, so I watched, young kid shows, cartoons and otherwise, for probably 4 more years than I should be.
Okay, okay.
But I just think they're so much fun. Like the reason that I like cartoons, I like anime, sometimes more than like regular TV is because you can just do outlandish things. Like the create you have a lot more flexibility for creativity because it's not limited to what you could actually do with people.
There's no like physical restrictions when it comes to cartoons. I'm totally with you there. I had kind of the flip experience of you where I'm the younger sibling. So I probably got an intro to like more adult media faster than I should have.
Oh.
So
That's true. But you might also know some cartoons from younger than when I like like the kid cartoons from a younger age than me.
yeah, yeah. I think that's possible. But speaking of which, like what kind of cartoons did you watch growing up?
Okay. Yeah, so I was just looking at just Cartoon Network because I felt like it's kind of funny. I felt like there are cartoons on Nickelodeon and
Hmm.
Disney Channel, but I feel like they tended, at least especially Disney Channel, tended towards like the young kid like live action shows.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Cartoon Network because there was a couple of them that I felt like were a little more niche because I feel like there's like some that we'll probably talk about later, which I feel like most people have watched at. And I was just curious to know if you had watched any of these. So I have 5 that I was just like blown away when I see the titles
Oh,
of.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, so these were the ones that I liked, but I'm just like not sure if other people were watching them.
Okay.
Um, I think at the top of my list. Oh, the other thing about all of these shows, which I think was super cool on Cartoon Network specifically, is that if you didn't play computer games, Cartoon Network had a lot of computer games
Yes,
for their
I do
shows.
remember
And
that.
I
Yeah.
used to play these, not all of them, but I used to play these like somewhat regularly, and I think that's what like really stuck them into my head. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll just rattle the 5 off and then we can talk about them. So
Okay.
the first one was Chowder, if you know
Ooh,
that.
yes, I know Chowder. I'm familiar, but did not watch a lot of Chowder.
Yeah, that's actually where I'm at too, but I just like I thought that one was really funny. The next one was Camp Laszlo. The third one is Totally Spies. The fourth one is My Gym Partner's a Monkey, and
I know that one.
the last one is Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Oh, I love Foster's Home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I
All
think there
right.
was like more popular shows that were better, but like those ones, like I feel like hold a special place in my heart for just being like a little more niche.
Yes. Okay. Foster's Home, top tier. Love Foster's Home. My gym partner's a monkey. I watched that one, but don't have a
That was the
ton
one
of
of the
memories
best
about it.
games. That was absolutely one of the best games. I think I like the game more than I like the show on that one.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
I've looked for these since. I cannot find the games anymore.
I remember. I think I liked Chowder, but I think I remember it being pretty dumb. Like even as a kid, I
Oh,
remember it
yeah.
being pretty dumb. uh, Camp Laszlo. I kind of remember. I have a vision of like it's like an orange monkey is the main character, right?
Yeah,
Or
they're
something
like
like that.
yeah, they're all like animals, the orange monkey. And I feel like they're always trying to get this cheese wheel. I can't remember what like their drive is for that one.
Okay, I don't remember that one super well. Totally Spies. I'm clueless on that.
Oh yeah, so that one is like I think it's basically a Charlie's Angels knockoff,
Oh,
but in like
okay,
cartoon form.
okay, okay. Did they have a good game?
They had a decent one too. I don't remember Camp Lazlo's game, but Totally Spies, My Gym Partner's a Monkey, and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends all had good games.
Yeah, I definitely remember the Flash like web games on on cartoonnetwork.com or
Yeah,
having
they're
a good
so
time with
good.
those. Yeah.
Okay, what about you? Do you have some highlights?
I grew up with like SpongeBob. Like,
Sure.
come on. Like I watched probably more than anything I watched SpongeBob. I remember I was not allowed to watch The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. That one was
Oh, that's
that
a
was
good one.
that one was outlawed in my house. Like
Really?
yeah, I mean, we could
Bad
watch like
themes.
most cartoons, but like for whatever reason, that one was. I think my mom thought it was like particularly stupid, so she's like, not that one.
Stupid. Oh, I thought you were gonna say like dark.
Yeah, probably dark too, but like I also remember that one being like a pretty dumb one, and not that like I'm looking for smart cartoons here, but
No.
like some of them are like more brain rot than others. So, um, definitely Fairly Odd Parents.
Mm.
Watched a ton of that one. I also, doing my research, I think Fairly Odd Parents had like, it was something like 3 seasons, 2 or 3 seasons, I forget.
Fairly
But
Odd
which
Parents,
is,
no, they had way more than that. Dude, there are you hip when they have a kid?
oh,
Puff?
wait, no, okay, no, you're right, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just remember like I would rewatch like, as all kids do, like the same episodes over and over and over again. And like, it was probably like a handful of actual like seasons or episodes that I was just like watched on repeat. So
Do you remember the movies for that one where they have Kiss as like these fairies or something? They're trying to collect the guitar pieces or something from Kiss.
I actually don't remember that.
Oh, there's the one where
But
they go through the TV channels.
oh, I do remember that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Wait,
I
that's actually a
love
good
that
one.
show.
Oh, this is like nostalgia, so nostalgia. Jimmy Neutron I watched a lot of.
Oh, here's a
Uh
question. So do you
yeah.
like that animation style? Because it bothers a lot of people.
I
Similar
don't
to
think I
Polar
do.
Express.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I thought it was funny, but like I do remember not liking the art as much.
And did you know that Sheen got a spin-off show?
I did. I remember I feel like I was like a little older, so I didn't watch that one as much, but I do remember when Sheen got his own show. So
Do you know the weird thing I think about all these spin-offs too is like I feel like you age out of these shows somewhat quickly. So when they do a spin-off of a character that kids liked in one show, I don't feel like it has that in like guaranteed success because there's not that much carryover. Because
yeah.
by the time you're done with Jimmy Neutron, like, are you really gonna still watch the Sheen show?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
I
totally
don't
with
know.
you. And then one last one I want to give a shout out to, because this one I feel like this is probably the most nostalgic for me, is Samurai Jack. You ever watch that one?
Oh, that's a good one, dude.
Yes. Yes.
I was recently trying to find that show again, um, because I remember it being pretty good.
Yeah, it is really good. And I remember like that one a little less kid oriented, but I remember like there's like a little more violent themes. But I remember like it was like a special treat when we got to watch Samurai Jack. Like me, my brother, my mom, we were all super into it. So even though it was like a little more adult, I remember being like, "Ooh, like we get to watch Samurai Jack." So like, I actually really liked that one.
Okay, that the last thing that you made me think of, I'll try not to keep just naming TV shows, but Samurai Jack reminded me of Shaolin Showdown. Have you ever watched that show?
Yeah, yeah, I kind of remember that one. I didn't watch, definitely didn't watch that one all the way through, but I remember like that has no wait, you don't. Never mind, never mind.
I think that I started watching this again in college, so I'm curious if maybe you remember it from then.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that is what I remember it from.
yeah, that show just gets to me. I just think that's so creative.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Paul, can I hit you with? Well, I'll give you the option. I have a little game for you.
I'd
I
like
have a
a
little bit of
game.
history of cartoons. You want to hear about history of cartoons, or do you want to play a game?
Can I do both?
Yes, you can do both.
Okay, we can start with the history, and then I'll practice my game
Okay.
skills.
Okay. Yeah. As you mentally prepare. Obviously, I'll give super super brief history because obviously, like cartoons as an art form, as a piece of media, like it is very very storied. No pun intended. So, so I'll just make it really quick. But kind of the very origin of a cartoon comes from a piece of art called a, oh, I'm gonna butcher this, phenictoscope or phenakistoscope. It's one of those wheels with a little picture, and every picture lined up next to each other is just a little bit different.
Like
You
the
can
horse
kind of
thing?
imagine, yep, the horse trotting, so that when you spin the wheel, it looks like the picture's moving. So that is where the origin of like animation in cartoons, like that's where it's kind of allegedly comes from. Obviously, that's like its own form of art. So, but you can see where that kind of transition came from. But coming from that, cartoons actually came from France. There was the very first. I know the very first cartoon was a French short film called I'm gonna butcher this. Phantasmagerie, Phantasmagerie.
The third
Please,
time, it just gets more and more confident. I like
oh
it.
my gosh! It's like, please, like, don't check me on these. Like, I know it's always bad. But the very first feature length film came from Disney. Of course, Disney more than any other company I think has made cartoons famous. So of course there's Steamboat Willie, but that's not a feature length film. The very first feature length film was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Very first animated feature length film. So I guess you can kind of thank Disney for like the whole
Thanks,
wide world
Disney.
of cartoons today. So super brief. I don't really want to. There's so much to talk about. It is like low key overwhelming. So I'm just gonna call it good there. So Paul, can we play a little game?
Yes, we may.
Okay. Paul, as I was doing my research, I noticed like there's just a whole bunch of cartoons nowadays that I have never heard of. Like the famous ones on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Like I'm sure the ones the kids are watching today, I had no clue about them whatsoever. Do you feel the same way?
I want to say I hope so. I'm almost
Okay.
worried that if I get this game right, like if I do well, it's a bad look on me.
Well, anyway, I was so shocked by all these different cartoons that I thought, okay, let's play a little game with Paul. Paul, I'm going to name you a cartoon. I'm going to give you an option, actually. One of them is a real cartoon, and one of them is something that I just made up. I want
Okay.
you to guess what you think the real cartoon is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, we'll start off easy. Which of these is the real cartoon? Big City Greens or Little Timmy's Beans?
I really hope it's not Little Timmy's Beans, but I think that's it.
Lock in, Paul.
Lock in. I'm locked in.
Paul, Little Timmy's Beans is something that I made up.
No, I really wanted that to be right. I think that's my problem. I'm just gonna know that I want this nonsense.
I know. That's totally right.
Little Timmy's Beans doesn't seem like it'd be appropriate. That's why I wanted it. But here's the thing: what I was hoping it was is a show about the like the fairy tale, like the magic.
The Jack and the
beans.
Beanstalk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Paul. One of these is a real TV show. One of these is something I just made up. Craig of the Creek or Greg Really Reeks.
No, you're gonna get me again. I want Greg Really Reeks. Locked in.
Okay, Greg Really Reeks is something I made up. This is so funny.
The concepts you came up with are funnier. They're totally not okay for kid shows, but I'm just hopeful.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with a Marvel cartoon. All right, one of these is a cartoon from Marvel. Which one is the real cartoon? Which one did I just make up? Marvel's Mercury Man and Demon Dodo, or Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? Which of those is a real cartoon?
Moon Girl and Dinosaur.
You're right. Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is a real cartoon. Marvel's Mercury Man and Demon Dodo is something I made up.
All right, I'm 1 for 3.
Here's a quick one. Unicorn Land or Centaur World? Which of those is a real TV show?
God, it's gotta be Unicorn Land. No, don't mess with me, man. No,
Centaur World is a real TV show. It's on Netflix, all right? So that one's a little I'm cheating a little bit with that one because it's a Netflix cartoon. But
I think that counts.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to give you the name of a cartoon. I'm going to give you 2 descriptions. One is the real description for the cartoon. One is something I made up.
Okay.
You ready to guess?
Yeah.
Okay. For the cartoon Owl House, which of these is the real description? Self-assured teenager Luz stumbles upon a portal to a magic realm where she befriends Ida, a rebellious witch, and King, a tiny warrior. Despite not having magical abilities, Luz pursues her dreams of becoming a witch by serving as Ida's apprentice. Or Righteous Tween Twindle wakes up as a rat in a kind of Kafka-esque style and finds that she's in a house of owls and it's feeding time. Uh-oh. Which of those is Owl House?
Hans, no, it's not the second one. It's not the second one. It's the first one.
What gave it away?
I think when you started laughing at the word tween, I didn't even need to hear the feeding time nonsense.
Righteous Tween Twindle. You don't like Twindle? No.
How did you come up with these? Did you chat GPT it?
No, this is all off the dome for
That's
real.
good. That's good.
Yeah. I would read the real description and then just like try to kind of riff off that a little bit. I'm surprised you didn't say it was Kafka that gave it away in that one. But
I was so locked in when you said tween that.
okay, last one for you, Paul. Ready?
Okay. What am
This
I?
is
Am I 2 for 4 right? 2 for 5 right now? Is this gonna make me 50-50?
You are 1, 2 for 5. You're right. You're
Okay.
2 for 5.
So this puts me at 50-50. I'd
This
be
puts
okay
you
with
at
that.
50-50. Okay, Paul. This is for a cartoon called Kif. Which one of these is the real description? Which one of these is something I made up? Kif. Kif is an abnormal alien with a knack for invention. Join Kif and his friends as they save the world one science project at a time. Or go on an out of this world journey with Kif, an enthusiastic squirrel alien who, along with her best friend Zib, brings unpredictable fun and crazy adventures to the animal residents of Oak Street.
Oh, it's Oak Street. That's got to be it. That's a squirrel. A squirrel on Oak Street. That's got to be a cartoon.
Good sleuthing, Paul. Good sleuthing. You nailed it with Kif.
I need them. I need more puns. That's the giveaway.
Yeah, that's pretty
Well, the
dang
first
good,
one
actually.
sounded too much like Phineas and Ferb. Though that would have
Okay.
been. Though that would have been a good like remake.
Yeah, I could have replaced Phineas and Ferb with Kif and just seen if that worked, but
It might have. I've been like, oh, that sounds awesome.
main takeaway here, Paul. Good job. You're 50-50.
I think that's acceptable.
Main takeaway is if you know any animators, I would love to get Righteous Tween Twindle. I'd like to boot up that cartoon, please.
Okay, I'll send some feelers out.
Cool. I do have a couple fun facts also, Paul, if you want to hear them.
Oh, I want to hear Hans's fun facts. Hans's fun facts. Cartoon facts with Hans.
Okay, Paul. I just got a couple. First one, animators who did not do a good job on The Prince of Egypt were punished at DreamWorks Studios. And you know how they were punished?
Were they forced to work on A Bug's Life?
They were forced to work on Shrek instead.
Oh.
Yeah, that's good guess though. But funny thing is like Prince of Egypt, like I've never heard of that. I think that was like kind of a bomb, but Shrek is like that's a multi-million-dollar franchise. Like Shrek is awesome. They also funny thing they called it getting Shreked when that happened. So if you were a bad animator, you'd get Shreked.
I love that.
Here's a good one for you, Paul. Time magazine. You know how they do Person of the Year every year? They were gonna give Person of the Year to Dumbo in 1941. But instead of giving it to Dumbo, which they were gonna dub Mammal of the Year, maybe this isn't such a fun fact. Right before that, the Pearl Harbor occurred, and so they gave Person of the Year to FDR instead of Dumbo.
Okay.
Is that a fun fact, or maybe not?
It's interesting. It made me think when you started saying that there was something wrong with Dumbo. Like, wasn't there something like slightly problematic about Dumbo now?
Is there? I don't know.
Okay. Don't look into Dumbo. Keep it fresh.
Okay. All right. As far as I know, it's kid friendly. All right, one last one for you, Paul. You know Pokemon. You know possibly the most revenue generating franchise in the entire world.
That's a good fact.
I think that's true. I think Pokemon is the most valuable IP. That's not one of my fun facts. I just think I've heard that before. So double check me on that.
Don't fact check that one.
But Pokemon has its own cartoon, right? You follow, our boy Ash Ketchum, and prolifically Ash Ketchum, he like always loses in the championship, right? He never actually becomes the winner of the Pokemon League.
Does he though, Hans?
Until animators 2 years ago finally gave Ash Ketchum his deserved championship title as he won the Pokemon League. Ash Ketchum, being this 10-year-old boy, it only took him 25 years of animation to win the league. So
yeah, let me tell you this, Hans. Mm-hmm. In the summer of 2020, I was an intern working at home, right?
Okay.
As you imagine, intern working at home, I wasn't doing that much work. I set a goal for myself to watch all of Pokemon that existed. I did the math. I would have to have watched 10 hours a day, every single day, to catch up to that point in 2020, and that didn't include the season movies.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a time investment for
And let me
sure.
tell you, I mean, I really only got through like the first couple seasons before I gave up on this quest. But
Okay.
each episode is not that much different than the other episodes. It's pretty formulaic.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. That really does not surprise me. Well, Paul, maybe if you had the same determination as Ash Ketchum to win the championship as
Do I
to
get
finish the
25
series,
years?
like maybe you'd actually finish the series.
I'd be world champion.
Yeah. Paul, you want to hit us with any cartoon resources?
I don't know.
Watch cartoons.
I guess, yeah, watch cartoons. There's some
Watch
pretty good
Samurai
ones.
Jack. That's what I'm gonna say. Watch Samurai Jack. That's a really good one.
You could watch The Dragon Prince.
Okay,
I think it's pretty good.
there you
Or
go. There's
Disenchantment if you're looking for something a little more adult.
there's some homework for us. Anyway, that sounds good. Let's bring on Jillian Gregory after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Joining us now, we have our mutual friend from college, Jillian Gregory. Jillian, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for coming on. Jillian, would you mind just to start, give yourself a little bit of an introduction and what you're here to talk about today?
Okay. Introduction. I am 25. I live in DC. I work in B2B sales and marketing. And today I'm here to talk about children's cartoons and more specifically, I guess, like the nostalgia that they bring and some of my favorites that I feel have cool hidden messages or like deeper meaning associated.
That's amazing. Me and Paul are both like very excited to hear about the hidden messaging.
I'm a little worried, but
Yeah, maybe a little worried too.
No. In what way? I promise I won't go in any like crazy conspiracies.
It's not like gonna ruin my
conspiracies might be
memories.
okay. Yeah, I'm just
No,
worried that you're
no.
gonna tell me like the Powerpuff Girls is like, really horrible messaging or something like that.
Oh no. I try to keep it like focused on ones that I like. So it's all like pretty
Okay.
it's ones that I feel are done well.
Okay.
Okay.
Jim, we might explain like a little bit like how did you get into this topic and like why do you find it so interesting?
I am a big fan of just like children's media. I don't know if that sounds weird, but like my friends all say it as well. And you guys knew me in college, like obsessed with the Trolls movies, loved them.
Yeah.
They were fire.
And I don't think I'm like alone in feeling that like Pixar has such a reputation where the movies are both for kids and adults. And I feel like that rings true for a lot of shows and movies. Also, I know we're not talking about movies today. Recently saw the movie The Wild Robot. It's DreamWorks. One of the best movies I've seen this year. Sobbed the entire second half of the movie. Really, really good. And that's my little plug. If anyone out there hasn't seen it, you should watch it. But I feel like is like getting into it. It's just I grew up watching cartoons. It's definitely a way to not escape, but like day to day, being an adult can be like really stressful. There's heavy things going on in the world, and I love to watch shows and TVs in general to kind of get away from that. And then like children's media, I find has more of a like positive outlook. The good guys win. It's more of like a uplifting type of content to engage with.
Yeah, I'm definitely with that. You brought up Trolls World Tour, so I have to talk about it. Yeah, do you remember when Anderson Paak as the llama troll? Do you remember when he sung about gentrification?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I say that all the time, but I feel like I get called out for that. Like, if people don't seem to remember that. But there you go. That's like an instance of adult messaging in a kids movie.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
100%. They cover heavy topics. I'd argue like Zootopia too. Like that's literally tackling racism for children.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that the topics they do tackle. And when you're a kid, you don't really realize it, right? But as an adult, you're like, "Oh, wait, okay. Yeah. It's kind of for both."
I didn't realize either of those two things. I'm just,
I was like, I love these songs.
yeah, I was just like, oh, that's so cute.
Just
They made a
popping.
funny sex joke at the beginning of Zootopia. That's all I remember.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a big one. I didn't like think about that in talking today, but like so many children's shows and movies have those like little innuendos for the parents that I feel like people just get a kick out of.
Definitely. Jillian, what like kind of kids cartoons are you watching currently?
I actually, one of the ones I'm talking about today, I just rewatched. It's called Infinity Train, and very, very good. It is basically 4 seasons. Every season has a different main character, but the whole concept is people as they're like going through lives, they're facing a very like challenging time. The train will appear for them, and the train goes on forever. And when you're on the train as a passenger, you have a number in your hand, and they usually don't know what the number means, but as they're going through each car is like its own like universe, little pocket universe, and they're completing these challenges. Their number either goes up or down, and they all find out that the only way to get off the train is to get their number to zero. And it usually involves them having to like come to terms with whatever they're facing in the real world. Obviously the idea of they miss home as they're going through these journeys and they want to return, but they cover some really heavy topics. Like sometimes the main character in the first season, it's a girl named Tulip. She's young. She wants to go to coding camp. Her parents are going through a divorce. Like that's what she's facing. But some of the other passenger stories are like the death of their loved ones or like best friends that split apart. And I think the show does a really good job of covering those topics, especially for kids. I'm like, I watch it as an adult, but I'm like, I can't imagine watching this as a child. Or I can, but I hope that it like probably helps kids who are going through similar things and facing heavy topics in their youth.
Gonna say you sell that really well. Like I want to watch that cartoon now.
It
Like
is
interesting
so
premise.
good. Yeah.
Maybe I don't remember topics being that serious in my kids' show, right? Like not recognizing it. Do you think that with like the current, I don't know, I'm not just going to say current climate, that people are making shows with like more serious themes, or are they the same and I just never noticed?
I think I definitely seek out shows with those more serious themes. Like another, like a favorite show of not just mine, but like of so many people is SpongeBob, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there is. Someone out there might be a bigger fan than me. Like maybe there's some deeper messaging to SpongeBob, but like I think some shows are also just meant to be like fun and wacky for kids. So I don't know if I missed it or maybe there are some that you've seen that you've missed, but I don't think that every children's show has to have a deeper meaning to be good.
Yeah, I don't really remember SpongeBob dealing with like death and divorce.
Right.
So.
Mr. Krabs is an only dad.
Why did we both think of Mr. Krabs?
Adopted daughter, only father.
Maybe Squidward had something going on there.
A local business.
Very dynamic character.
I was just joking about Mr. Krabs last night too, so that's really funny.
SpongeBob is just one of those shows. It'll always be relevant. So many generations. Just keep up with it.
Do you actively kind of seek those more deeper meaning cartoons when you're looking at this kind of media?
Yeah, I feel like I finish a show and I'm like, oh, I need something to fill that void. And then I'll like look into it and be like, what are shows that are similar feeling or like similar energy to whatever show I just watched? I also really love to read, and I feel like I'm very interested in like fantasy and like epic quest and like things like that, those types of topics. Also, disclaimer, I know I don't plan to talk about any anime today, but I know that's like almost its whole different category for like children's and adults, but definitely some shows that I've started watching because of like that interest in that type of storytelling.
Definitely. And Jillian, you mentioned some like hidden messaging in some of the cartoons you've been watching. Can we just dive right into that? Like, do you have some
100%.
stories in mind? Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Probably the craziest like hidden messaging. And well, let's start with hidden messaging rather than like double meaning. If you guys know the show Gravity Falls,
Yes, yep, I've heard of that one.
I started watching it when I was actually a kid, and me and my sister loved it because we're twins. The main characters are twins. And back when I watched it back then, I didn't have any idea of the hidden messaging. Like, we just loved the show. rewatch it as an adult. I like keep up with the animator on social media. Just it holds like a very special place in my heart, and I found like these communities who are like a whole time as it was airing were very into the hidden messaging. So, for example, in the theme song, every episode it ends with like a unintelligible blurb, and to me, I just thought it's like TV static almost as a kid. Going back, apparently at the end of the theme song in every episode, it's actually a backwards recording that would give like a clue to different ciphers that you can use to decode symbols and things that are in the show. So
What?
there's so many levels to it. Like I have this journal. So as an adult nerd, going back and rewatching, they actually made like more books and media based off the show. They never did another season like once the show ended.
Yeah.
But I literally have, if you can see, I know this is a podcast and I hate showing things, like the written out the ciphers to decode like things that are in the book, in the show, like so
no
much.
way.
And a big part of the show too is it's focused on like mystery and like creepy things. And these two twins move to stay with their uncle for the summer who lives in Gravity Falls. And the whole premise of the show is Gravity Falls is like a beacon for like strange and mysterious things. And Dipper, the main character, logs this. He finds journals of some mysterious author who lived there, and he's trying to uncover the secrets of this town. The main villain in the show is an evil triangle named Bill Cipher, and he's very much like this Illuminati figure, right? Like he's got the triangle shape. He makes references to Illuminati, and like honestly makes like some very adult references that I didn't pick up as a child. But one of the books that they created post show is the Book of Bill. And that was really recent. It came out this year. And to add another layer to the hidden messaging within that book, if you're like doing the codes, like what I just showed you, like finding all the Easter eggs, there's a website that you can go on, and it's called thisisnotawebsite.com. And the only way to access it is a password that's like you also have to find with like the codes and the things. And then on the website, there's even more layers of like typing in the codes that you found to get basically additional content and like more layers to the show. So like there's so many things that are canon in this universe that aren't talked about but are like very big in the fandom.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
How many hours do you think you sunk into that? Like
I like probably weeks of my life. It's so crazy. And I wouldn't even consider myself like the most in depth. A lot of it I'm like I would get tired and I would just like watch a video or go on a subreddit of people who actually got like way deeper into it than me, and kind of cheating that way if I couldn't find a code or couldn't figure it out. But it's like insane lore. But it's fun too because the writer, producer of the show, Alex Hirsch, he said so many times that he's not going to make another season. He's really happy with how the show ended. And I respect that a lot. But I think it's cool how he's able to like keep the mystery going and keep this like fun interaction that he has with the fans and their love of the universe with like this never ending like scavenger hunt, feels like.
That's actually so cool. Was there like to get this like passcode to enter the website and stuff? Like, what was the puzzle there? Are there like hidden symbols in an episode or something like that?
Yeah. So it wasn't from the website specifically. It was from the Book of Bill.
Okay, gotcha.
I do have it, but not close enough to me at this moment that it would be worth it for me to go walk and grab it. But it's like super disorganized and zany, and it's like the thought process of this character in the show who's, I don't want to spoil it, but based off how the show ended, he's like talking about what he's been doing since then. And he's an evil character. So the book is very much like, if you read this book, like you're under his control, you're now like his minion and doing his bidding. So part of like the messaging in the book and the website is like you're taking these like weird zany like pages that have nothing to do with each other and they're actually connected in some way. So like in one portion, he's like, you didn't do what he said, or like you've been bad, and he just puts the Great Gatsby, like a chapter from the Great Gatsby, and the password to the website was in the Great Gatsby like chapter. It's like literally 9 or 10 pages of the book, but it's a lot. Yeah.
Wait, what?
that is so nuts.
It's like it's so insane. It sounds so absurd to talk about, but it's like I remember when I got the book, and actually my sister bought it for me because we were both like huge fans of the show. So when it came in, I spent like literally the whole weekend just going through and like doing the codes and finding, and there's different like to decipher the codes depending on the character and like who the page is about. It's different for every time. It was a lot, but it's like fun to do. It's a little puzzle.
Yeah, that sounds so fun. Wait, so is there an end to the scavenger hunt? Like, is there a final reward, or is it like still going?
I'd say that there's probably like a finite amount. Like I have a Excel sheet of like every code that people found on the website like, that worked, and like it generated like a video clip, and they got like really like big. It's I think part of it too is how many people are doing this at the same time. So when the website first became discovered, so like I logged the website, got the password, it was just a countdown, and no one knew what it was leading to. And then because so many people were waiting for the countdown, when it hit 0, the website actually crashed. And it started doing like negative countdown. And then people, because the show is so insane, are like, is this part of it? Like, did it actually crash? Or are they doing this on purpose? But no, it actually crashed. And then when the website was up, like people were all typing in the codes at the same time. There was like shared documents of people saying like, oh, I found this one. And it unlocks like this clip of like Weird Al giving a message, or like some of it's actually kind of scary. Like I remember doing it on my phone and being like, wait, that was kind of spooky. But I'd say there's definitely like a finite number of like passcodes you could do. But some of the things that were unlocked on the website, like some of them have dates that are way further out. Like, I literally have a calendar thing in my phone for one of the dates that are referenced in the future in December of this year. That I'm like, oh, I know like he's going to do something on that date. And like I want to follow up and check in on it. So I think it's part of like this whole fandom. Like the show has been done for at least 5 years, and this is still going on. I feel like it'll never really be over, at least with these characters. And as long as that people keep buying and engaging with their content, I think he's gonna keep creating. From what it seems like.
Oh my gosh, I love the lore behind this. I mean, this kid's TV show, right? Like, I love the lore.
Yeah.
We'll have to get an update from you in December about what the new clip is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's smart. And I think there's something to be said too. Like if you don't want to go through all of the lore and the Easter eggs, like the show itself is a really sound show, both as a child, and actually made Tyler rewatch it so he could like enjoy, and I could tell him about like all the passwords and the hidden meeting and things. And he's not as like far in the weeds with that type of stuff as I am, but he also really liked the show. Like I don't want to say like I'm too much of an emotional person, but like cried at the ending, like just like a really well done plot. And I almost respect Alex Hirsch for saying, no, I'm not going to make another season, because it'd be so easy to get engagement on that. But he's really proud of the story he told and leaving it how it is.
That's amazing, Jillian. Yeah. Do you have you noticed that kind of hidden messaging in any other kids TV shows, or has it been like, has Gravity Falls been the main one?
I'd say like that is the biggest one I've seen. I feel like there's more like hidden messaging and like codes and that type of stuff. I see that talked about more with the adult shows. Like people always talk about the Simpsons telling the future, or like crossover like little Easter eggs and like Rick and Morty and like Gravity Falls and other like similar adult shows. I have not really seen it done like that for children's shows in a way that like Gravity Falls has done. And I think that's why it has such an adult following too. Like people have argued like the show at times feels like almost like I can't believe they put that in a kid's show. In one episode, I without spoiling too much, I'm like, this is literally like body horror in this show. I'm like rated for like 12-year-olds. Yeah, yeah. I'd say more towards the later seasons, but it's very interesting.
They tried to match the age of their audience growing up, I guess.
Yeah.
By that point, it was okay.
Yeah, probably. But on Disney too, who's arguably is very strict with that type of thing.
So that's like hidden messaging. Do you have any ones that were kind of like theme based that you wanted to talk about? Like any like darker or like more serious tones to shows?
I do. And I think Tyler told, I know he told Hans about it, but there's a show called Over the Garden Wall. If you could tell, I like shows that are a little bit like not dark, but like darker, like spooky, especially this time of year. And I feel like people always come back to it. It was made like 10 years ago on Cartoon Networks, and it was a mini series. So it's only 10 episodes, and it parallels Dante's Inferno, you know, the like famous poem. and his journey through the 9 different layers of hell. So the show's 10 episodes. Episode 1 represents like the entrance, and then every episode kind of parallels that journey. So the main characters, Greg and Wirt, they're brothers, and it starts with them going into this place called the Unknown. So they don't like directly reference it in the show, but people have speculated that because of how many similarities there are to the messaging, and even like some characters having the same name. So like in the poem, Dante and Virgil says Dante's guide as he's going through the different layers to on his journey through hell. But there are characters like Beatrice, who in the poem is Dante's love interest, but in the show, she's like this bird that's guiding them on their journey. And some more direct calls like that with naming conventions, but then more, but also I think more like messaging in terms of like the themes of every episode. The plot of this one is they start off, they're in the unknown, they're trying to find their way home, they're lost, and we don't know to begin with how they got there or why they're lost. And it almost reminds me of Infinity Train, where like the main characters have this episode where they kind of have to confront what they were dealing with before they were lost in the unknown. And that's like the episode right before the last one where they find their way back. Definitely some darker messaging in that one as well. So some of the side characters in there, without giving too much away, the Unknown has this character called the Beast, who is like the devil figure in the show. And the whole idea is as they're trying to find their way home, they're trying to go to this woman Adelaide who they think can help them. They have to avoid the Beast. But we also know there's this lantern holder who his whole job is that he is somehow working with the Beast, but more so like a victim of him, where he has to keep the lantern lit. And the way he does that is by cutting down edelwood trees. I don't want to give too much of the show away, but he's just doing this because we know that he's a daughter, that he's trying to keep like her flame lit, but he doesn't know what the trees are and like why they're important to the Beast. And that's a big theme in the show that is also quite dark. It definitely does parallel Dante's Inferno as well, though, because again, without giving too much away, in the poem, the trees and the forest represent like I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might have to fact check this later, people who'd committed suicide. They don't talk about suicide in the show, but I definitely see some similarities in the messaging there.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I actually didn't put that together at all when I was watching Over the Garden Wall. I
Right.
knew it was like it was definitely a darker like TV show than I'm used to with kids animation. But I really appreciate like yeah the kind of allegory there that like I would never have noticed if you hadn't have told me. So I've got to go back and watch it now.
Yeah, no, it's so because I didn't know that the first watch either until I saw someone talking about it on social media, and also as the 10-year anniversary, I did rewatch, and going back with that knowledge, it's like almost like staring you in the face, especially with the episode themes. Like if you've seen it, Hans, like Pottsfield represents
Mhm.
purgatory, and then the one episode that's focuses on like the circle of hell that's all about gluttony. I would never have picked up on this, but like Greg is the only one who eats in the show, and he's like overindulging, and none of the other characters eat, and they're all talking about like throughout the show they're hungry or they're making references, but no one else is shown eating. And then like in that circle of hell and inferno, the whole idea is people who overindulge in real life, they're not able to eat in the afterlife. And it's very like minor things like that that I would have definitely never noticed with on my own.
Definitely. Jillian, if you're okay, can we zoom out a little bit and just talk about
Yes.
so like the other point I wanted to touch on with this episode was just kind of the like nostalgic aspect of cartoons. So I'm just kind of wondering, like me and Paul were able to talk about it a little bit, but what are your favorite cartoons from your childhood? And do you ever go back and like revisit those cartoons because of nostalgia?
Oh, 100%. I'd say Gravity Falls is probably like the most nostalgic for me. And I
Mhm.
think outside of how fun the show is and it being good, I think because I enjoyed watching it with my sister, it made it more nostalgic for me. And I can't even say how many times I've rewatched that show. Whenever I'm going through like a challenging time or like low spot, I'll just revisit it and it always makes me feel better. But some of my other favorites. I think from like a fun standpoint, like I was a big SpongeBob gal.
I'm with you. I love SpongeBob. I'm with you.
I feel like I liked some of the more like weird ones. Do you guys remember My Life as a Teenage Robot?
Oh yeah, I do actually.
I loved that
good.
show for some reason. No deeper messaging, nothing like that. But I just remember like the ones that would be like, a little weirder, different, or like I didn't see talked about as much were some of my favorites. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I very pigeonholed in the types of content that I like. So I'd be curious to hear what some of your favorites are.
We talked about this a little, but do you remember Samurai Jack? Did you ever listen to that one?
Okay, I remember it. I don't think I watched that often.
Okay. I absolutely love that one, and I think it's very similar. Like, I have very similar reasoning, because I was like, we weren't usually allowed to watch Samurai Jack, but if my mom was with me and my brother, then we were allowed to watch it for some reason. So
She just didn't want to get left behind.
yeah, no, I think that's what it was. But the awesome part about Samurai Jack, like, it was kind of a little bit of a darker one. There's definitely like some violence in the episodes, but it was a Cartoon Network show. But didn't really get a great ending until years later. It got re-picked up by Adult Swim, and then they really dove into like the darker, like more violent tones, and Samurai Jack got his ending. So that like I actually really appreciate that, especially growing up with the cartoon, because I don't. It's like he got the ending that I wanted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love that. What about you, Paul?
I was telling Hans about a lot of like kind of more niche Cartoon Network cartoons, but the ones that I think are probably more popular that I liked, like Danny Phantom, Codename Kid Next Door.
Oh, I loved Codenames Kid Next Door.
Yeah. And then the one of the ones that I was telling you earlier, Hans, that I liked was probably Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
I love that too. You guys are making me think of like so many others that I forgot.
Jillian, I was telling Hans about this, but do you know this TikTok trend? It's where these people have like a cake and they have the little figurines
The
of
Hear Me Out cakes.
the Hear Me Out cakes, where it's like people talking about cartoon characters they'd want to smash.
Do you have a Hear Me Out, Paul?
I was just talking yesterday about how the Beyonce fish from Shark Tales is just like confirmed baddie.
Oh yeah. Some of them I'm like, that's barely a Hear Me Out. Like that is a conventionally attractive fish.
Yeah, exactly. That isn't a Hear Me Out. That one's yeah. And then I was like, okay, it's her, the penguin from Happy Feet, the mom penguin.
Oh yeah. No, these are good.
What?
We were talking about these at work, but I was actually getting some heat for mine. Like, I think mine's actually Hear Me Out, so I will give some context. Have you guys seen the Back of the Barnyard movie?
Is this the one with the cow that's Otis, or am I thinking of the wrong
Yeah,
thing?
no, Otis is the main character. He's not my Hear Me Out. The dad figure, his name is Ben, the one who sings the I Won't Back Down cover as he's getting like attacked by coyotes. That's my Hear Me Out. And people were giving me some heat for that one.
Is he like the mostly black cow?
He's a brown cow. I think you need the
Yeah.
context though. Like that scene of him protecting the chickens while he's singing that song, the cover of the song, arguably better than the original. It was a very moving moment.
In the photo of him on Wiki, I mean, he does look like he would protect you.
No, and his voice. Like, I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'm like, watch that scene, and I feel like that is self-explanatory.
All right, I'll hear you out, Jillian.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that trend. Poor Hans is like, what is going on?
This is just so specific. Like,
I just love it because people were. I agree. Like people were definitely giving like pretty obvious answers. Like the one that I saw first was Doc Hudson from Cars. Like yeah, of course. Like duh.
Agreed. But I would argue that the girl from Fishtails is also a very popular one.
Certified baddie.
No, some people are giving answers that I was like, this isn't even real anymore. They're like the concept of time. And I was just like, you've ruined the trend.
Yeah, they've gone too far.
We're done. Like too far.
Wait,
I was upset
like
when
that.
someone picked any character from A Bug's Life. I was like, that's disgusting.
Bug. Oh, jeez. Okay.
So yeah, it's
uh,
a fun trend.
yeah. Are you guys okay if we get back on track?
Yes.
No. Hans is tired of talking about cartoon baddies.
I'm just not. I mean, you know what it is? I'm not on TikTok.
Mm.
maybe if I was on TikTok, I would be more bought into this trend. But I was kind of wondering, Jillian, how do you feel about like we talked about like adult messaging in kids cartoons, but how do you feel about like adult cartoons? Do you watch those too?
I have. They're not usually my favorite. And I know that's a very, very hot take.
Mm-hmm.
Like South Park, I know is like a beloved adults cartoon. I cannot stand it. And like my dad is a
Really?
huge fan.
Yeah.
I just think adult cartoons go for more like low hanging fruit, and they're usually like very comedy focused, like a little bit vulgar, and they're going for just like
Yeah.
those like quick laughs. And for me, I'm much more of like a plot driven type of story. That's what I'm looking for when I watch TV. And I know not everyone wants that, right? Like I think it's almost like you could compare it to like SpongeBob for adults, where you just want like something like you could throw on, like you don't have to put too much thought into, and it just make you laugh, and it's a good distraction for a while. So I don't want to like devalue them. It's just not my favorite type of show, but I've still seen some of them. Like I've seen Rick and Morty. I've seen even South Park. I know Family Guy is very popular. They're
Mhm.
just not ones that I think I've watched any of those all the way through, except Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I feel like there's a component of like shock factor with those ones. Like that's their aim, right? It's like to do
Yeah,
some outlandish stuff.
and they tie in a lot of like. I feel like they're usually pretty relevant, like what's going on in the world at the time. They'll tie in
Yeah.
news
Yeah.
to that, which is interesting.
I have a
Yeah.
very distinct memory of a South Park episode that I saw when I was probably too young, where there's a chili cook-off and like Eric Cartman, the character, like like cooks chili with his competitors' parents in the chili. And
Oh,
then feed it. I'm trying to
He
put
puts
this
them
like
in the
delicately,
chili.
but like holy cow, like that is dark as hell, and like yeah, that's really stuck with me. So
yeah.
I can't watch South Park. I don't know if you guys have ever heard or seen the actual movie Human Centipede.
I've heard of it. I don't think I
I
could
have
stomach
no
it.
desire to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first episode I ever saw of South Park was like a spoof of that. And I think it was like making fun of like Apple or something and had Human Centipede in it. And I just don't recommend it to anyone. It's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. So I don't watch that show because of that specific example.
They also joke a lot about things that are like, ooh, I don't know if we should be joking about that. Like,
That
yeah.
being said, Hans and I actually saw the Book of Mormon made by the same creators on
Yeah.
Broadway, and I did really like that.
I also thought it was really good.
Wait, like the Broadway play?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're the same people who made South Park?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no
Because they're like
idea.
famously like ex-Mormons, the South Park people.
That is so interesting. I didn't know that. I've not seen Book of Mormon on Broadway, but I've heard really good things, and it's definitely on my bucket list of plays to see, even like locally. But that is really crazy.
Julian, speaking of episodes that have or scenes that have stuck with us, like do you have any particular scenes from your childhood that like have stuck with you over time from cartoons?
Hmm. I think it's so hard. Like, are spoilers allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
feel
think
like
any
if it's
show that
from
you're
your
talking about at this point.
yeah.
Okay, I'll put a
Exactly.
disclaimer. Spoiler coming. If you don't want to hear spoiler, it's gonna be Gravity Falls. Sorry, favorite show. If you don't want a spoiler, pause or click away. But I think scenes that stuck with me. It's revealed that one of the characters has a twin, and without giving too much away, that being revealed was like the biggest plot twist at the time. And I wish I was like tuned into the fandom because I just know that people were like losing their shit.
Yeah.
I also feel like any show that has like a big character death, or like also in that show, it's not a death, but one of the characters at the very end of the show loses all of their memories, and it's like this very big like heroic sacrifice where he basically knows that's going to happen, and he does it as like a sacrifice to save the rest of their family and like basically the whole world. And the way it's done is so good. You cannot help but feel like true like grief for the character, which is crazy. Again, in a children's show, I'm like, they've built this person up so much, and they made the character so dynamic that you really feel for them as if they're like real people. those are probably the two biggest scenes for me. Even in like Infinity Train, I didn't watch it as a kid, so I can't say like it stuck out to me through my childhood. But as an adult, there's a scene where we find out who the conductor is and their tragic backstory, and it's like not the real conductor, and that also involves like her losing a loved one, and she has this coming to terms moment where we find out her number, and it's like insanely high because the whole point, right, is to get off the train. You want to get your number to 0. It's like going across like her whole body, and like her having to like grasp what she's done to make her number that high. I thought that was like insanely well done. It stuck with me for a bit.
I feel like there's in kids TV shows, right? Like almost always episodes come like full circle, and I mean like everything's back to normal again at the end of the episode, right?
Yeah.
So that you can just continue the whole series. So it makes me like it feels like it hits especially hard in these cartoons when like a permanent change does happen.
Oh, for sure.
Because you think these characters are like invincible, and then all of a sudden, like, ooh, like they lose their memory forever. And you're like, okay, that for some reason this is actually affecting me.
Yeah. And especially in kids shows, a lot of these are written so that if you see a standalone episode, it'll still make sense. There's still like a mini story that's mini plot going on that's like wrapped up neatly in every episode. And sometimes they really are just silly in all of these shows. So when you get one that's like, whoa, world changing, you're like, this is fire. Like this is actually changing the plot of the show, like not just like this story arc.
I feel like I don't know if you guys have ever seen Futurama. That's definitely one of my favorite like adult cartoons ever. But they were like famous for like most of the time fun, silly episodes, and then like every once in a while they would just hit you with an episode just punch hard and like hit you in the feels. So like you just got to prepare yourself sometimes.
Yeah, no, sometimes it's good and bad because if you're not expecting it, you're like, damn, my favorite.
Like holy cow!
Yeah. I didn't need this today.
Right. Jillian, do you have any thoughts on like any like advantages or disadvantages that cartoons have in like telling stories or like talking about different themes that like live action shows can or can't do?
Oh, totally. I think animation is probably the biggest challenge that like they have to face. One, you have these characters who in most cartoons, not everyone, I'll say, their outfits are completely the same. They're like pretty simple drawings, and to convey emotion or like more nuanced like jokes or even like complex scenes, I feel like is really hard to do when you just have like this pretty simplistic character rather than like watching someone in like Game of Thrones, thinking about how many scenes there are where there are people who aren't necessarily talking, but there's a lot happening and it's a lot of emotion being conveyed. I think that's really hard to do that well in a cartoon. So when you are able to have these more like dynamic, complex characters, and the more you can give to them in their storyline, is how I've seen that done really well. But it's hard to have like a tragic like scene or emotional scene, I think, in the same way that you would have with like a real life show. And yeah, not real life, but you know what I'm saying, live action.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Game of Thrones is historically accurate, so
I would just watch that instead of going to history class.
Exactly.
Awesome, Jillian. So obviously this podcast is about, hopping into a new passion, a new hobby every week. So what's kind of the elevator pitch for why should we watch these cartoons?
If you're looking for like a fun, like puzzle, like almost like interactive experience you can throw yourself into, and you're the type of person who likes that thing, I would definitely say you have to check out Gravity Falls, and the story itself is really good. Even like look at some of the things you should be looking out for before the show. It probably make it a little bit more fun. But also, if you're the type of person, if you're like me, I use media as like a way to distract myself from things I'm going through at work or in my personal life or the state of the world. And if you're looking for just like a really well done piece of media that's also going to make you feel good, it will break your heart, but like will leave you with something that you take away from. Like I learned from these shows as an adult. I would definitely point you towards Infinity's Train. Over the Garden Wall, if you like vibes, if you like Halloween, and you like things that are a little dark, but also just really like, I think it's a beautiful story. It's a really fast watch too. It's not as heavy as like a homework or world that you have to dive yourself into. that one's a really quick watch that you can test the waters in. So maybe start with that one. Those are my pitches for those 3 shows.
I've fully bought it. I've not heard of Infinity Train until you talked about it today, and I really like the concept. So I think that's going to be the next one I check out for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
where can I find these, Jillian?
Gravity Falls is on Disney Plus if you have that. Over the Garden Wall, I think is on maybe on Disney Plus. It's definitely on Hulu. Infinity Train used to be on HBO Max. You probably can find it somewhere like pay. I don't know where to find that. You might have to do some digging. Hans, text me after this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll send you a link to a way that you can pay for that.
Awesome. Jillian, do you have any plugs, like either personal, any kind of content creators you want to give a shout out to?
I don't have any personal plugs. I'm I like to consume content. I don't make a lot of it. But yeah. I will plug Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls. Actually, I have the other 2 creators written down too because I think they deserve a shout out. But sure. Alex Hirsch is the creator of Gravity Falls. I think he's a great producer of the show, but also just like a really fun person to follow on social media. And then the creator of Over the Garden Wall is Patrick McHale. He actually just made a stop motion short for the 10-year anniversary of Over the Garden Wall that just came out like this beginning of November. And I thought that was just like a cute nod to his fans. And then the creator of Infinity Train is Owen Dennis. I don't know too much about him, so I'll be careful about plugging him without knowing too much. Okay. But usually I find that the creators of these shows tend to be good people. And with Patrick McHale and Alex Hirsch, you can tell they care a lot about the characters they've created, but also the fans who are supporting them. Would definitely check out their social media. And they make fun like shorts and spin-offs that are cool to engage with if you enjoy the show.
Amazing. Yeah. Jillian, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I feel like I learned a lot.
Thanks, guys. I also do watch other things besides children's shows and cartoons, but okay. I just thought this was more of a fun topic.
Yes. I love it so much. And please, expect a text from me soon about Infinity Train.
Oh, I'll be waiting. So worth it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jillian.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the This Week I'm Into podcast, and a huge thank you to Jillian Gregory for sharing her passion on the hidden messaging behind cartoons. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future topics, please reach out at thisweekiminto@gmail.com and give us a follow on Instagram at thisweekiminto. Please rate us 5 stars and share this episode with a friend. We're doing our best to grow the podcast, and your help really goes a long way. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. And now, a word from our sponsor, but legally, they don't actually sponsor us.
Hey, Paul, I got you coffee from the... Whoa, Paul, what are you doing?
Hans, it's all here. The lines all connect, don't you see? See, Bugs Bunny isn't just asking, what's up, Doc? He's secretly exposing the socioeconomic power dynamics of carrots in the post-war era.
Not this again. Last week you said SpongeBob was a subliminal campaign for bikini bottoms.
Because it is. Look at the angles here, Hans, of Bugs Bunny's ears when he says Doc. He's pointing in Morse code. And don't even get me started on what Yosemite Sam's representing.
Paul, I think you need help.
Well, as a matter of fact, Hans, I do have help. I have Dakota Tunes, the only subscription service that helps me uncover the real hidden messages in these cartoons. They even sent me this guidebook called What's Your Favorite Animated Rabbit Really Trying to Say?
Paul, this says for entertainment purposes only, and also for kids up to 12. I didn't even know you could have an age maximum on toys.
Well, I am entertained. Dakota Tunes taught me the truth behind everything, like how Roadrunner's beep beep is actually a warning about AI taking over the market.
Okay, Paul, listen to me carefully. I'm turning off your cartoons before you start reinterpreting Tom and Jerry as an allegory for Cold War politics.
You're right. Tom is capitalism and Jerry is...
No, stop. We're done here.
Dakota Tunes, for the cartoon conspiracy theorists in all of us. Call now and I'll throw in a tinfoil hat, just in case Bugs is watching.